D as well. We're D too. Yeah, we're D and D. This is time for another one.
Yeah, here we are. Here we are.
Turn this off.
Back on the chain gun. Switch off your bleeps and tweets.
Yeah. I just had a laptop nearby in case I needed to fact check or, do some quick research on anything. But yeah, man, we were having a conversation earlier, just a casual discussion, and we felt like, we were covering some things that I think people would want to hear about. So.
Yeah, but I mean, potentially, I suppose this stuff is always grist to the mill for us. It may well be for other people. So
but let me ask you, Daryl. Mm-hmm. We're still developing this podcast show. Do they call them podcast shows? It's just a podcast again.
I guess the show is the podcast, right?
This is. We naturally gravitate towards movie discussions.
I guess we do.
Is that our podcast?
Well, you know what? Ultimately, the problem that I have with a definition like that is that we will find ourselves in a position where we become compelled to, start talking about movies. And I think the only reason for doing this, not the only reason for doing it, but I think the main reason for doing it is just that I've enjoyed our conversations.
Yeah.
And whilst our conversations, I think the entry point is a fairly narrow junction of pop culture. I would say primarily movies. I think music far less so, but also on occasion, I think we're gonna sound like dweebs, man. No disrespect, but comics and just our love of certain
pop culture.
Yeah, I think so. But having said that, I don't want to be in a situation where the conversation can't segue. You and I have had political discussions in the past, and I found those kind of engaging and stimulating. I'm not so hung up on what I would like is if people enjoy the things over a period of time that they hear and that they're listening to, they just come and join the conversation.
Yeah.
And the conversation will be as organic as it always is.
I am in agreement. I like that.
Good.
That's good. Anyway, so
on to the movies.
Yeah. So what are you thinking about? It's interesting. I don't know if this is something that has been a conscious decision on either of our parts. I know that it's occurred to me a couple of times when I've just been thinking about things. But it has occurred to me that you and I have not at all discussed the Joker Oscar nomination stuff.
We haven't. No, we haven't. We haven't.
Not even just casually to each other or anything.
We haven't. And I think there's a lot to talk about in there. Would you agree?
I think there could be. I think potentially. It's a weird one for me. It's a weird one because, I guess there would be a lot to talk about because I have a lot of mixed feelings about it.
Okay.
I have a lot of mixed feelings. There is, it's an incredible time because I am a DC. I don't know if I would classify myself as a fanboy because I don't just automatically like anything that's DC, if that's what a fanboy is. But I do have a history. Like DC is as a brand, has had a major influence on my childhood and pop culture, all that. So when they have a success, I feel it's like a sports team or whatever. You feel great and you feel that your team's got a victory. So on that level, I feel I'm happy about it. I like the Joker. I think it's a fantastic film actually. But then and I'm happy it's got all those Oscar nominations. Do I think it's worthy of all of them? That's where things start to get trickier, and that's more to do with my own I as we discussed earlier, Dara, I don't necessarily trust or respect the Oscars as as a judge or I don't think their films or their idea of what makes something great necessarily correlates with mine. Although I am guilty of very much you know, saying, "Oh, something I like is an Oscar-winning film. Oh, you should check it out. It even won an Oscar." You know, I will say that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Because I know most people
yeah,
associate
yeah,
Oscars with quality,
yeah,
even if it means very little to me.
yeah.
But ultimately, I think it's cool that the Joker has got all those Oscars. I don't necessarily think it's the best comic book movie ever made. You know, I don't know that it is. Is it for me? The question is why. It I don't think it's even the best movie of its kind made. Like I don't. I'm not really sure exact. I mean, as far as performance, Joaquin Phoenix's performance, I think, is worthy of any competition to be considered. That's not a question there. But as far as everything else, 11 Oscars. Uh, yeah, I'm happy for it. I am happy for it, but I also question, what that actually means.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, I would say that I think before you can have a discussion like this, it's really important to just contextualize for you and for I, but also for anyone who might be listening, what we imagine the Oscars to be. And therefore, we can then start to have the discussion as to whether or not a particular film is quote unquote worthy of receiving Oscar nominations. For my part, I think the Oscars are primarily a marketing exercise these days. I think they were initially self-referential and self-congratulatory for the industry. There's nothing at all wrong with that. Every industry.
I think they still are.
Yes, certainly, but I would say that the marketing directive is slightly more paramount these days. But anyway, I mean that's neither here nor there. What I was saying was I don't think there's any problem. I want to make it clear that I'm not snobby about them because I think every industry have their own awards. You know, you could be in Chapel on the Frith receiving an award for having sold the most rolls of wallpaper at your local DIY store.
Yeah.
And you would deserve that, and of course you would. It just so happens that when your industry is populated by very famous celebrities that people want to know about, those awards become publicised. And somewhere along the line, because people certainly in the old days were very interested in the fortunes of their movie stars that they would read about in the movie magazines back in the day, and a not unsatisfactory consequence of that was the continued marketing of the film. I think, and I can say this because I suppose I am one myself, I think all actors are whores and vagabonds, as well as being, beautiful people. and therefore, they all seek to present themselves as worthy and enlightened, because deep down they know they're not. So, you will always get a film like The English Patient nominated over a film like Escape from New York. But if you were to put a gun to my head right now and ask me what would I rather watch, I would say Escape from New York.
Which is why the MTV Awards mean so much more to me.
Okay, well that's really interesting, because we would kind of, just because what we think of MTV, I want to say we, again, you've got to contextualise it, because what you think of MTV may be different than what I think of MTV, but is it fair to say that we have a similar, we have an accord about what the Oscars represent? So then again, what's quite interesting is you could put a gun to my head a second time and say, what's of greater quote unquote quality, The English Patient or Escape from New York? And I could still probably do you an argument that it was Escape from New York. But obviously, Anthony Minghella, great writer, no longer with us. Whatever we think of the merits of that cast, there's certainly a cast that would be considered to be, actors with a capital A, which the Academy always likes. You go on.
Is that what the Oscars are about? Is it about quality over, the overall package? Or...
Well, no, this is my point. I don't think it is. I would say that the word that comes to mind is worthiness, and worthiness is like it's like the price of gold. It goes up and down, in terms of its efficacy. But I do think that we will always shoot for what we feel to be worthy. Whatever that may mean in however however literal or factual that might be. I suppose that you can never. It's always about perception. But we run the risk of disappearing into our navels. Getting on to the point of the Joker. Do I think the Joker is worthy of 10 Academy Award nominations? 11, Jesus. 11 Academy Award nominations. Well, certainly no less than The Irishman. Certainly no less than The Irishman. Both of those films are of different qualities, different overall quality in my opinion as films. It's difficult with the Oscars because, it isn't sport. So, this idea that we're awarding the best, this is the best. Well, again, it's all perception anyway. The Joker was a funny one for me. I was excited by it. I'm going to be honest with you because I am probably a little bit of a fanboy. And I know it's never hip to sort of cop to this, but I was disappointed, man, that Jared Leto got thrown under the bus for Suicide Squad.
Yes, this is something that has come up between us a few times.
Yeah.
I think we both feel the same way about this.
And it's almost like, the propaganda sort of machine has rewritten history now, and it was a terrible performance, and he failed miserably. Jared Leto is a great actor, and he did a great Joker in a muddled film that suffered from very obvious studio panic and intervention. And I think he was one of the casualties of that whole thing. I mean, ironically, the Suicide Squad made a fortune, but it's made a lot more money than the Justice League domestically in America, which
made a shit ton of money. It made more money than they were expecting it to make. It exceeded expectations.
I think it was on a par with Batman vs Superman, which in my mind only underlines what a kind of, in relative terms, not a commercial failure, but what the commercial potential of a Batman. I mean, a Batman vs Superman film, let's be honest, if it were done a different way, I'm not going to say a better way, if it were done a different way, you could have been talking like Infinity War numbers, couldn't you? Yeah, without question. Yeah. And then on the back of that, a Justice League movie is going to just go out the stratosphere.
In the world...
2 billion worldwide.
That I sort of, when these films were being announced and discussed, in that world, Justice League was inevitably going to be the Titanic beater. I just didn't see how...
Nobody
if things were just done the way they're supposed to, that Justice League wouldn't have been the biggest event in cinematic history.
I mean, it's extra. I mean, I want to stick to the Joker thing, but what I will say this though, it is extraordinary, right? Well, let's use the Joker. The Joker is, I think, matched the Dark, not domestically in America, but worldwide, the Joker has either matched or exceeded the Dark Knight.
I believe it's exceeded it.
That's extraordinary. The Shazam movie didn't do the same numbers, but it's a lesser known character. It's a character that I think in the popular consciousness, if it even exists, and it says it all, they couldn't call him Captain Marvel because Marvel had just put their own Captain Marvel movie, so they basically lost his actual name.
Yeah, they've legally lost it.
Yeah. So, and that's strange because their Captain Marvel was out a long time before Marvel's Captain Marvel.
Yeah, they let it go. There's a whole story that I know that story. I've been able to save it for another podcast.
Okay. Well, we might get into it, but anyway. So that Shazam movie, which I loved, it was everything that I read comics for when I was a kid. It didn't do great numbers, but I think it's a film that everyone has a little soft spot for. Even if it's perhaps like yourself, it's not the kind of material that you're going to revisit time and time again. I'm pretty sure that when you watched it, you had that little, as Lester Bangs would say, the great US rock critic, an erection of the heart. It was, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was that
it took me back. It was
right.
Exactly.
It's his
innocent time of my life.
And the subway. I mean, it's just everything that I fell in love with. The possibility and the excitement. It's beautiful.
It's what films used to be like when I was a kid.
I agree. It felt to me like one of those old Spielberg films. You watch it, the stakes are dark. I was going to show it to my two little boys, and as soon as you see the 7 deadly sins in his brother's office or his father's office,
intense.
You can't show them that because it's legit scary. It's gremlin scary. It's got those really quite dark moments. And all the better for that, in my opinion. Anyway, so that did well. Certainly perceived as a success. You know what I mean? It probably made nowhere near the money that Batman vs Superman did, but still perceived as a success. and obviously Aquaman and Wonder Woman in the stratosphere. Who in there? Maybe Wonder Woman because of the TV show and because she's, as they say, one of the Trinity in DC land, one of the three big characters. But who could have ever predicted that the number one film on Box Office Mojo for the DC universe would be Aquaman outside of Entourage? It's extraordinary. It's extraordinary. They got introduced to that character, Momoa's Aquaman, in a film that was celebrated for tanking.
Yeah.
And it went through the roof.
Yeah.
So my point is, nobody knows anything. But to force myself to get back on track before I disappeared in any more rabbit holes, The Joker is a funny film. It is, and funnily enough, I've been saying this for a while, and I saw a quote from Todd Phillips quite recently that kind of summed up what I'd been saying about this film. And I know, conversations you and I have had privately where we've talked about this, and I'm pretty sure that I've expressed this to you, where he said, in order to make a real movie these days, to sort of get it past the studio, you have to disguise it as a comic book film. And that was ultimately where my problems lay with The Joker. I wasn't sure what the point of it was. Now, heavily influenced by King of Comedy, heavily influenced by Taxi Driver. They're two of my favourite films of all time. The Joker as a great central performance, as you say, although I would say that I've seen him do a variation on that theme in The Master, and a variation on that theme in a lesser seen film that he did called You Were Never Really Here.
I have both of those on my to-watch list.
Okay, so he's extraordinary in that. And not that this means anything, but I think I prefer his, certainly in You Were Never Really Here, I think I prefer his performance in that. Not that means anything, but certainly that was a film that got completely overlooked. I think they reward commercial success, and I think they reward worthiness, and I think they're like a comeback story. So do I think I got The Joker? When I remember we spoke about this when we saw the trailer for that film. It was like a piece of art. I mean, we were so jacked to see that film. Yeah. I mean, I wasn't all that down with it as an idea. I was like, no, really? Like, what, just the Joker? What's the point of that? The Joker's chaos. I don't want to know what the Joker's backstory is. I don't want to know what, the only time I think I've ever really enjoyed that is in The Killing Joke, Alan Moore. And the reason that it worked was because it was such a beautifully told tale. I mean, who else but Alan Moore could make you feel sympathy for the Joker? This kind of like maniacal sort of rictus grinning sociopath.
Let me ask you a question.
Go on.
Killing Joke. Does Batman kill Joker at the end?
No.
Yes.
You think yes?
I think yes, and it's a fact.
Why is it a fact?
Because
Alan Moore said so.
Basically. I'm trying to remember if it was Alan Moore or if it was one of DC's editors. But I think it was Moore himself.
Well, I think...
He didn't say it directly, but the point was there was a reason why, they couldn't show Batman killing. It was an interview, like an old interview I saw. I saw it recently, but it was somebody pointing it out. And it was like the panels, the way it was done, you've got the ha 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 ha, and then you've got the side, it just stops. And the idea was it doesn't fade away or whatever, it just stops. And then you've got the red and blue lights of the police coming in. That's why it's called The Killing Joke.
It is an interesting one, right? And that's why it's an amazing piece of work. It presents a moral question, which is, if you have a strong moral fibre, or in Batman's case, an unstoppable moral fibre, and if you boil down that character to its essence, Batman is someone who doesn't want to see anybody else's parents get killed. So therefore, given everything that you know about the Joker, the carnage, I mean, obviously, I know we're probably in different iterations of the character, but it's all part of the same thing in the end. We know that he's killed Jason Todd. We know that he's paralysed Barbara Gordon. We know that he's humiliated Commissioner Gordon. We know these hateful, horrible things that he's done. Is it therefore amoral of Batman not on that occasion to break his moral code and kill the Joker? It's you know what I mean? It is. I mean, that's why Alan Moore is who he is, because he's operating about 6 levels above. But having said that, whenever I read that, that's not what I got. I just got the kind of melancholy of it. What I remember from that is at the end where he says, "Let me help you. I can help you," and the Joker says, "No, it's too late."
Yeah.
He doesn't say it in a kind of hateful way. He says it almost in a kind of way that he's grateful. I say he doesn't say it in any way. We're reading it off Talk Bubbles, but the way that it's written, that's certainly the way that I read it.
Well, there's a Batman story that you won't be very familiar with because you're not a gamer, but it's one of the most popular ones. It's from the Arkham games. I'm sure many of our listeners will be familiar with them. It was done by Paul Dini and Kevin Conroy voices and Mark Hamill. It's full on. So it's almost like a legitimate conclusion to the animated series in many ways.
Okay.
Everyone's back. But the ending, the very sort of big surprise / controversial ending of the second game, it's got many twists and turns. I'm not going to get into all of that. It's a huge, epic story. But it ultimately comes down to Joker's dying, and he's trying to get his hands on the only cure, this vial that can cure him. And in the final conflict, in the final fight, I don't remember specifically what happens, but Joker tries in his final moments to get Batman to kill him, essentially to take him with him, which makes the vial essentially fall and break. It was just this moment where, because Batman had to react, the cure got lost, and Joker's starts to giggle because he realizes this is the end. And Batman's final words to him are something like, "You want to hear you want to know what's really funny," and Joker's just kind of like in this nervous giggle. And Batman's like, "Even after everything you did, and after all that's happened, I still would have tried to save you," And then Joker just bursts out laughing, and he dies. And then the final scene is Batman carrying Joker out, and Commissioner Gordon, the police are waiting, and it's sort of like Batman's almost it's this weird moment. It was a semi-controversial scene because it was like, what are they trying to convey here? But I don't know. I just thought I'd share that with you because it was quite moving. It was quite a moving moment.
No, I mean, there's that's why, isn't it? Like, ultimately, they work so well because there's a whole yin yang thing going on, isn't it? It's control versus chaos.
Yeah.
It's a character that represents absolute and utter control, and a character that represents absolute and utter chaos. And what happens when you kind of those two spinning wheels or two spinning tops hit one another?
I think that just Joker recognizes that Batman is fun. It's a fun puzzle and a fun challenge, but I think that goes both ways. It's just that Joker's vocal about it.
No, I agree, but I also think you see that there's a thing with Joker, isn't there, where you see on some level I think that it pisses him off because whilst I prefer, I mean, it's ultimately one of the problems. I think I would have enjoyed the Joaquin Phoenix movie more if he wasn't the Joker. I would have just enjoyed watching Arthur Fleck's descent into Henry.
But haven't there been? Killer. But my question with that is, if he wasn't the Joker, doesn't that take away too much? Because aren't there quite a few movies of, tracking a person's descent?
Better ones. And
that's my point. That's exactly my point.
Ultimately, that's one of the issues that I have.
That's one of the issues I have.
That's why I'm like karaoke. I think.
Yeah.
I think that's the reason why. I think Scorsese is as susceptible to flattery as anybody else, as is De Niro. But I think that Scorsese got near to it, and ultimately balked at. It's an interesting one, isn't it? It's about as quote unquote real a comic book movie as you're ever going to see, if we can even describe it as a comic book movie. Because
Yeah, we can describe any movie as a comic book.
Well, I have this whole theory that, mate, we're gonna end up like sort of, you know, the way the Greeks used to do literature back in the day, where there was a series of kind of archetypal characters, and every story was told only through the eyes of one of these selected, you know, Greek whatever.
Yeah.
I swear we might end up doing that with like DC characters and Marvel characters. Like every movie, you know, there'll be a sort of quiet Hungarian mood piece, you know, about one man's journey of discovery after he's paralysed, but he'll be Deadpool.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like that's where we're going, because fuck it, make it Deadpool, then it'll sell.
Yeah.
You know, so there's part of me that thinks that, but I think ultimately Scorsese. I mean, but then that opens the door as well, because I do have things to say on his whole assault on the Marvel thing as well. But I do think that he's susceptible to flattery. He saw what Phillips was trying to do. I think it was a kind of homage to the point of Karaoke, but I think it was technically beautiful, and I think that Phoenix is obviously compelling. I've got to be honest, for the sake of congruity, I'm going to just say it, mate. And I know it's a real fanboy thing, and I know DC's whole thing is, oh, we can go here, we can go there, it's everything. Especially now the TV show has kind of gone, yeah, there's the multiverse. But I wouldn't have minded seeing it with Jared Leto. But I don't think, ultimately... I think it's limiting. I think it would have been limiting because it admires it in that universe that we've seen. But now they're kind of rebooting that movie anyway.
I have it...
with the same actors.
I don't feel... Yeah, you're right. That's an interesting thing to say, that you'd rather... So in your vision, in your idea, would Jared Leto be Arthur Fleck?
Yeah.
See, I guess because
different guy though, isn't it? It's a different character.
Yeah, I already have a very, very... I will be surprised. I mean, obviously the whole DC, the Snyderverse is being rewritten and retconned, so it could be anything now, but I truly, honestly believe Jared Leto's Joker was a Robin. I very strongly believe that.
I think that there was inferences on that. He's Jason Todd.
Yeah, or I mean, a Robin. I mean, the first one I was
that was hinted at in Batman vs Superman?
Yes.
With Robin's costume and the Joker's.
And the whole line about how many of us stay that way, you know, about staying good. I think they were building to that.
That would have been great. I just thought that was a reference to Death in the Family.
It's even said that you know, in Harley Quinn, if you were to watch the TV spots for Suicide Squad, they would show the characters and they would have little sort of like information stats and all that stuff. And Harley Quinn was credited as the person that killed Robin in that. It actually says
I think I remember
it's
that.
one of his killer. And I think there's a link there. I think it's one of those like, oh, just like Darth Vader killed Anakin.
Yeah. I hear you.
So
maybe that's an interesting way to go.
Yeah, that's what I.
What's interesting about that is, as far as their universe would have gone, is that, you know, it acknowledges Robin whilst solving the problem of having a sort of allegedly heterosexual 40-year-old male knocking about with a young boy all the time. And also the moral problem now, which, because we're dealing much with DC much more in kind of real world tangibles, like how do you justify putting a child in there? I mean, the show actually, Titans, does that brilliantly well just by having...
Have you seen season 2?
I started it. I'm about 10 minutes into the first episode, so don't tell me anything yet. But it deals with it brilliantly because it just makes Dick Grayson really embittered at the fact that his childhood has been weaponised.
Yeah.
It's a brilliant way of dealing with that problem.
Yeah.
Going back to this whole thing, I think that maybe it's impossible now because both films exist. So, you know, and I really like Joaquin Phoenix's performance. He did great in it. So, you know, but I really like Jared Leto's performance and I would like to have seen more of that. I just think, you know, we're not going to see Joaquin Phoenix's Joker. It was so successful. I think they felt it was almost like, you know, a kind of, I don't know, Kurt Cobain solo album when Nirvana were at their height or something. But actually it's sold more than Nevermind. You know what I mean? It's just done really, really well. And now you're sort of going, so is Pattinson going to get to meet that guy? And you know that he isn't. He's just not.
He's not.
So then you go, so we've got to get a third Joker in the space of about 6 years. So how's that going to work? Because, you know, I saw Farrell on Jimmy Kimmel the other night. He's putting weight on. He's the Penguin.
Yeah.
Zoe Kravitz is Catwoman. Do we know who the Riddler is? Because apparently they're all in that script.
Yeah, we don't know. I don't think it's been confirmed who the Riddler. Because what's his name walked.
Seth Rogen. No, Jonah Hill.
Jonah Hill walked, but he wasn't necessarily confirmed to be the Riddler. It was assumed that.
Oh, I thought he was going to be Penguin. I thought they replaced him with Farrell.
Yeah, I mean,
the more obvious.
The media started. The annoying thing about the media, sometimes they will guess and they'll stick with the guess and talk about it like it's a fact, but it was never actually said that he was going to be the Riddler. But he did walk. And I don't think we know who the Riddler is. If I'm wrong about that, or if you know, put it in the comments, please. But as of right now,
yeah,
nothing.
Okay. So there's no Joker in that script, though, is there?
I don't know what's in the script. I just don't know any. But I would doubt it. But that's not been.
See, that says to me, even that is a sort of tacit acknowledgement of the problem that they have.
That what?
What we're going to do about the Joker now?
Well, I don't think they're going to worry about the Joker at the moment.
Yeah, but if you're making a Batman movie and you're it's like, you know, go hard or go home, and you're putting everyone in there, which, let's be honest, they haven't done since the 1966 Batman TV movie, where they put all 5 of them in there, and it sounds like they're putting all 4 of them in there. And, you know, the Clown Prince of Crime, mate, he's number 1 in the Rogues Gallery. It's like,
it doesn't.
I bet you any money that what's his name, Matt Reeves, would have wanted the Joker in that script.
I doubt it. I disagree.
Okay, why?
The reason I disagree is because I know that first and foremost, he wants to tell a detective story. And I think what he's doing is, you know, when you've got a detective story and he's investigating all these different people, we have this heightened world where these different people are these villains that we know. Joker doesn't really fit into that kind of narrative that well.
I think he could do it.
He would be the guy. He would be the one. He's not a suspect.
It depends.
Joker's
that
depends.
That depends. And it doesn't have to be as kind of procedural as him. Now I go and speak with the Penguin. Now I go and speak with the Joker. Now I go and speak with the
Well, I'm sure it's going to be done in a much more exciting way, but I think that's essentially what it's going to be.
Well,
it's the Long Halloween. They have acknowledged that the Long Halloween is the influence from which they're building on. Okay. And Joker was in that. So I mean, if Joker was in that, he wouldn't be.
Yeah, but he's only like he's not because it's about thinking, isn't it?
He would be like you know.
The Long Halloween is Two-Face, isn't it? The
Long Halloween is Two-Face. It's a sort of the tragedy.
Yeah.
So that I believe in Harvey Dent.
Carmine Falco whole thing. Yeah. So they've kind of used a bit of that before.
Yeah, Nolan took from that.
Yeah, from Nolan's thing. But I personally think this, right? The fact that the Joker is not in that film is a tacit acknowledgement already that they're a little bit unsure. I think when he's gone, who can I have? I think they've gone anyone but the Joker. And he's gone, I'll have all of them then, apart from the Joker. And I think that if you're having all of them, if you're doing that, that all my enemies against me vibe, why wouldn't you have the Joker?
I don't know. I mean, I see your point. I do see your point, but I can also see why you would have.
Fair enough. I mean, we're all guessing, aren't we?
Yeah, we're all guessing.
But I mean, I do think that, like, I think they've got a problem because I think that there's probably, I think there's every chance because of the numbers, a sequel to Joker, and the DC universe will roll on. Is it confirmed though?
Yeah. Well, yes.
Everyone writes that on Collider.
Well, hold
confirm,
on.
And you're like, is it confirmed?
They've said it. Joaquin Phoenix.
I think he wants it more than Todd Phillips does. If I'm honest, that's the impression I get.
It's confirmed in that I don't want to give false information here now, but I'm pretty sure it's confirmed, and I know for a fact that I've seen interviews with him talking about how they'd been talking about the sequel for a while. I'm pretty sure it's confirmed, but again, guys, let us know in the comments.
Yeah. Well, okay, let's say it's confirmed. So let's say it comes out in 2 years' time. And let's say it's not going to do as well, but let's say it does kind of like
The Joker 2 has officially been announced. Yes.
Has it got a release date?
Joker sequel officially announced by the studio. This is why I had the laptop at the beginning, guys.
Yeah.
So, here you go. So, yeah, I'm not going to read all of that, but it's a whole...
Does it give us a release date?
Multiple Google pages of the announcement. I would assume no, because they usually don't give release dates right at the announcement of the sequel, especially when the first one just
Okay. Well, all right then. Well, bear with me then, and I'll paint a picture. And I'm going to put it to you. So, The Joker's done $1 billion. It's arguably the most successful DC film of the last 15 years, and we're including the Nolan verse in that, right?
Yeah. Well, so if you're talking in terms of
if
profit,
you're talking
it
about
is.
in profit, yeah.
But
we're talking about critical as well. I mean, what 11 Oscar nominations? It's off.
Well, then it is. It's not arguably.
It's
yeah.
So we do a sequel, which will probably be kind of Dark Knight Rises size. Not quite as big as Dark Knight, but still pretty damn big.
You mean in terms of?
Yeah, because clearly it's Joker. Unless it's The Godfather, a sequel's not going to get nominated for more than 11 Oscars, is it? They'll have to be. They won't have to be, but I will find it bizarre if there's not a degree of universe building, because in that time, Pattinson's Batman's going to come out. Something's going to happen with Wonder Woman 1984, the Aquaman sequel, although I think that is a way off. But someone's going to make a decision about what they're doing with Henry Cavill and Superman.
Somebody please make a decision and tell us what's going on.
Right. Well, so how is that going to work with Robert Pattinson's Batman? Because is he just like, okay, so we're going to...
Well, but they've already said. I mean, again, it's a question of not whether to believe him, but how much to believe him, because there's a sliding scale to some of this stuff, but they've already said Pattinson's Batman isn't necessarily the DCEU, just like Joker.
So they're doing the same thing.
Which is why I was arguing forever that Ben Affleck might still be Batman, because he said he's not doing this Batman. He never said he's no longer Batman. That was never said. Okay. So I'm now skeptical like everyone else.
But I'll tell you what I think. This is what I think. I think what they're going to do, and I think it's like, this is the lowest common denominator thing that they might do. But I think what they might do is just make Wonder Woman sequels, make Aquaman sequels, make Shazam sequels, make Joker films, and make Batman films, and like never the twain. So I think it may be the case.
That was their original mission statement.
That's very, very dull if they do that.
I don't think they're just going to do that. I think what's happened with the Arrowverse has really emboldened them. I think they're going to start embracing the multiverse more.
They've got to learn that lesson. I think they have.
I think Flash is going to be somebody that's going to be running through movies and stuff.
So precisely. So let's, actually the most positive thing is Ezra Miller turning up.
So even Matt Reeves wants to do a trilogy.
Yeah.
And that's going to be his own corner. By the third film, I guarantee you, we're going to find out that's a different Earth, and Ezra Miller's going to run and meet Robert Pattinson.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So there you go. Job done.
Job done.
Perfect. And
trial run on TV. It worked. Let's throw the big money at it now.
And so maybe if we do get back into... Maybe if Cavill does stay on board, and maybe we get back into that particular, DCEU thing, maybe that Justice League, then Affleck's dead?
They can do anything now. The fact is, I think Arrowverse was used as a trial run. I think the crisis we saw on TV was DC seeing what can we do with this, because I was reading a thing today where they're like, the Arrowverse guys were told they can have fun with it, and it's a golden ticket to sort of rewrite their universe, just to it essentially serves the same purpose the original Crisis served for the comics.
To clean up house.
And all that. And I think that the DC was watching and participating. They were very hands-on, and they wanted to see how this would work out. And I think the part of the reason for all of this was a positive, because I mean there was that whole back and forth between what's the Flash movie gonna be? Is it gonna be Flashpoint? Is it too soon for Flashpoint? Whatever. And they knew the universe was in trouble, but Flash is the guy that goes and fixes things or messes things up or does multi-universal changing things.
So that's why that movie's happening, because that's clearly a.
I think what happened with Arrowverse is very much connected with DC's plan for their cinematic films, and they wanted to see how things might work out. It was a trial run. It was okay. We can do this. We can't do. This is what people are responding to. All of that stuff. Can the multiple universes really? Will that confuse people? Are people down with that? Because these were some of the concerns we're having. This is why Nolan was the guy. It wasn't Warner Brothers. It wasn't DC that was saying we can't have multiple Batman. It was Nolan. It was Christopher Nolan who said no Batman on TV while I am the Batman czar. So
irritating.
Well, I mean, whatever reasons. I
suppose he basically probably owns half of a studio floor anyway, isn't it?
Yeah. I remember joking with my friend Joe about how, because he was talking after The Dark Knight, he was like, yeah, this was my last superhero, it was my last Batman film, and they're doing a third one. I don't know if you remember, but he was not talking about doing a third one.
Okay.
And then
it took him a while, didn't it? It took him like 4 years.
Yeah, because he was publicly saying that he wasn't interested in doing a third one, but he wasn't saying I would never do one. But he was just like, that's not the plan. It wasn't about doing a trilogy or whatever, But I think maybe he was shaken by Heath Ledger's death, because we all know that actually did affect him.
That must have been very, very hard.
Yeah, he
hard.
took that very personally, and I think that's
why they documented. To have such a triumph and to have it mired in such a terrible tragedy. You'd always have mixed feelings.
But I think the joke I was having with my friend was, I think every morning he was woken up to the sound of dumpster trucks driving up to his front lawn and dumping cash. Every morning it was just another truck just dumping more cash.
In the end, man. What was it? I read Stephen Amell said when he was really desperate to get out of Arrow at season 7, and they offered him. They said, look, just do 10 of season 8, 10 episodes. And he said, they offered me so much money, the quote was, it would have been fiscally irresponsible not to do it.
And I guess you also heard that he had a nervous breakdown on the...
I did. And but in fact, I listened to it because it's on Rosenbaum's podcast.
I haven't heard it.
Yeah, and I did. It's really upsetting, actually, because one of the things I noticed was that he's always been in phenomenal shape. He's not in good shape, and he's quite podgy. His face is quite round, and I was like, wow, okay. So he's apparently one of the things he said was, I don't want to do any scenes with my shirt off in the thing. So he hasn't.
In Crisis.
Yeah. So he hadn't been training, and he was like, that kind of had an impact on him. But he was like, I wasn't training. It was really interesting because he's just basically saying, before it happens, he says. He's starting a series in March. I mean, this was obviously back in October, I think. And he said something like, I don't want to be responsible for anything except being a father and a husband until then. And it gives you some insight. Because I've said this to you before, he's the quarterback in that. He's a stud.
No one can deny how hard he works.
I mean, what he's done... What he's put out there for the fans to get what they want, the way that he's influenced. I think Amell's the reason that Tom Welling rocked up. Clearly, he couldn't get Rosenbaum to do it. I really like Rosenbaum. I think.
Oh, that's interesting that he's on Rosenbaum. They didn't discuss that at all, did they?
Well, no, because he says I've got to go home, and actually it turns out that in Hollywood he lives just around the corner from Rosenbaum, and you actually hear Rosenbaum saying, "Do you want me to drive you home?" And he says, no, I'm just going to walk. But he did go back and he allowed him to put it out there as well. I heard that. And again, that's like another just stud move, man.
Yeah.
Like even the badass is going, look, I'm vulnerable as well. But I thought it was a massive insight into how hard he had worked.
Can I just say, I'm just going to throw this in there. When I saw the headline, I saw that it said that Stephen Amell suffered... a panic attack, but as somebody who has had their first anxiety attack a few years ago. I haven't heard the podcast, but I did read about it, and maybe I would need to hear it myself, and I could be wrong, but I just wanted to say I felt from what I'd read that it was an anxiety attack he had,
What's the difference?
not a panic attack.
What's the difference between the two?
And that's yeah. Thank you for asking. I had I had an anxiety attack.
Okay.
And I would say, and again, correct me, guys, on the internet if it sounds like I'm completely incorrect here, because I've only had one of them, not both.
Well, hopefully you won't have any more.
Yeah, hopefully. I feel that my understanding is that a panic attack is overwhelming sense of fear.
Right.
You're panicking. It's in the name.
Okay.
There's a panic. I can't imagine, based on my anxiety attack, if that, because I don't feel that I went to panic when it happened to me. In my understanding of what panic is.
I see. So what we're talking about is levels of extremity then.
Yeah. Well, yes. Well, because I think I associate panic with fear.
Right.
In my situation, I felt really, and I guess yeah. I mean, I guess anxiety would be the same, but I felt. I was. Would you say that is worrying the same thing as being fearful?
Yes.
It's the same thing.
Yes, because fear has a huge gradient of intensity, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So you might say, "Oh, I'm really frightened that such and such at work is going to find out that I didn't do whatever I was supposed to do." Well, that's a form of fear, but it's
maybe
not,
they're the same thing.
I mean?
Maybe I'm talking out of my ass.
I just think
maybe I'm talking out of my ass. But yeah, I don't know. And maybe
And certainly from what you've said, the way you described that, you can hear that he's distressed.
Yeah.
But it's not like someone who's inside a burning building, like screaming for help. He just kind of goes quiet and he says, "Oh, I'm quite dry." I think he says, "Oh, I'm quite dry." He says, "It's really hot in here."
Yeah, I've seen dramatizations of panic attacks. I haven't seen a real one. That I can recall.
Okay.
And it my association with that is.
Well, sorry. The only thing I'm going to say is, you can get lost debating the ifs and buts, but whatever it was, he was obviously in some degree of distress, and he was uncomfortable enough that he couldn't finish doing the podcast.
Yeah.
And Rosenbaum, who himself actually has spoken, he suffered from anxiety and depression and things like that. So he's very sensitive to it and very cool. But what it seems to be triggered when Rosenbaum asks him about the schedule, and he says, I don't want to be responsible for anything.
Yeah.
And I have never experienced, I've never experienced being a series lead on something. My piffling little career, I've been guest lead. And I know that experience is, as Tupac would say, all eyes on me.
Yeah.
And I've been in situations,
incredible pressure,
as you know, where my personal life has taken a very bad turn.
Yeah.
And moments later, I'm stepping into that freight onto that freight train, and I think I did 2 weeks in the particular instance that I'm referring to, and it was me every day, and the thought of doing it for 9 months of the year. I mean, who knows what was going on? I mean, there may not have been any particular horrific tragedies. Just that.
But it also may have been.
Yeah. Exactly, because life is life, and life is happening all the time.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it is the slog. It's on you. Slog. It's on you. And also, the man's training like an athlete as well, and that is something that isn't taken into account. That man was operating. I watched him do the Ninja Warrior circuit, the USA version of it. That man
I
was
saw that.
operating
I
as
saw
an athlete.
I saw that. That was amazing. I hope I remember to put this link on this podcast, because there was a link I debated sharing with you. In fact, the only reason I didn't was because you were preparing for your show last night.
Okay.
And I didn't. I was conscious of what I was saying to you.
No,
But there was the most recent actors roundtable, Hollywood Reporter roundtable,
Yeah.
had Tom Hanks, Jamie Foxx, De Niro.
De Niro, I've seen it. Yeah.
Did you see? Oh, you saw it.
Mm.
And so what you were just saying reminded me of when Hanks was talking about everything's on you. You know, you come out. It's, you know, they've closed the street. You know, and now you got to perform it.
All on
even
you.
though there's a whole team there that are making it together, and you're all together, it's all on you.
And again, although I've never experienced anything like that level, like I've been, you know, as I say, I was been number one on the call sheet for projects, through episode projects and things like that. And the thing that you can really kind of feel the sort of the hairs on the back of your neck is when you have that thought, it's all on me. It's the other thought that follows it, which goes, this is what you asked for.
Yeah.
That's the thought.
All right, as we start to wind down on these last 10 minutes of this podcast, I just thought, you know, I wanted to do a bit of reflection, a bit. I always enjoy these discussions with you.
Likewise.
And I've been thinking about our discussion in the context of a podcast, and, you know, in the context of, like, I'm aware that we're recording this, and I'm aware that, you know, I'm trying to project my voice a bit more, and, you know, all of that. But I'm also, I'm fascinated by our. We've covered so much. We've gone in all kinds of different directions. And I was thinking about this, and I enjoy it, and, you know, and I don't mind doing it, and I think it's just sort of our natural way of discussing stuff.
I agree.
But do you think, and maybe this is a question as much to anyone listening as it is to you, but I feel like I want to vocalize it, you know, so that we're aware of it. In the podcast I listen to, there seems to be more of a they don't cover as much ground as we've covered.
Right.
I mean, we're all over the place.
Yeah.
We go wherever
Yeah.
the conversation takes us.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? Do you think is that something that is that a strength for us? Is that something we need to look into? Would it be better if we had a few topics, for example, that we were like, okay, this is what we're going to focus on. This is what the episode or whatever is about.
Well,
because even now I'm just like, what would we title this?
Well, I guess it would be thoughts on the Joker.
Was it mostly the Joker?
I mean, listen. I tell you what I'm going to do to top and tail this. My answer is this. No, I don't think the Joker is worthy of 11 Oscar nominations. That's my answer to your question.
Oh, okay.
But nor do I think any of the other films are as well. So I mean, that's not to, I enjoy. I will go and buy the Joker's out now, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah.
So I'll probably go and buy that tomorrow and I'll watch it again.
I think the Joker is out.
But in answer to your question, I think it's almost like a sort of jazz scale, if such a thing exists, whereby there's certain, if we had topics to refer to, that means there's certain notes that we can play, and then within that we can sort of freeform.
Yeah.
I personally, I think as long as there's a degree of, which I have tried to do in this podcast, and we'll see how successful I haven't been, if when we hear it back, I have tried to stay on the topic there. I think it's quite useful. I think a nice way of doing it is at the start of every podcast, and what I quite like about this is, ask me a question.
Yeah.
I'll ask you a question, and let that be the starting pistol.
Yeah.
And as long as we remember what that first question was, I think we can and we will, because that's the nature of our conversations.
I've actually, thought about there's certain things that I want to introduce into this podcast, but I've also wondered if maybe there should be separate podcasts, because there's certain, like, there's almost little games that I want to try to bring into this, where, okay, maybe I'll carve out 10 minutes and say, we got 10 questions in 10 minutes. Or what? You got a minute to answer.
Let's do it.
You know, so maybe you'll come in. You'll have some. You know, between now and the next podcast, write down a couple. 5 questions each, and you each have a minute to respond.
Perfect.
And then we'll have a round. Like, we're going to do this thing now, and then over time maybe we can develop other ones and just spice things up a bit.
Great. I think it's nice when we come in. You might have some ideas. I might have some ideas. We may not have some ideas. I will almost certainly always have a question on the shelf that I can ask you.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I mean? Like, there's always something that I'm going to go, I think, and I'm aware of the time and stuff, but I would quite like to say this, that I think what I enjoy is, and without painting in too broad strokes, is there are no, and there can be no definitives.
No.
I just seek to understand the question.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
that's what we're doing.
And to me, that is always stimulating, and I will always want to hear the opinions of others.
Yeah.
And even like someone like your opinion is who I respect very much. I'm also on some level. I might not devote anywhere near as much time to it, but I'm still also interested in the opinion of someone who I don't necessarily feel a great degree of commonality with, because I just think it's always insights. The Joker is fascinating for me. The Joker's like a Batman versus Superman for me. It's not as polarizing as that, but I definitely, another day we'll talk about the way you watch that film, which is comic gold. But it's it's not. It wasn't the thing that I thought it would be.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily that it was anything bad.
You know what?
Go on.
I am down to do another podcast if you are.
Yeah. Okay.
I'd like to do another one, and we can lead with that. With
all
that
right, let's do that.
If you want to do that.
Okay, so let's do that. So we're gonna sign off on this one.
We're gonna sign off on this one.
All right. Cool. All
right. Well, thanks for listening, everyone.
All right. Yeah. Good to talk.